introduce our second prospect today here.
Yeah, so his teammate, Modest Buzelis, at least that's how I heard him say it in some video I was looking at because I was like, everybody says his name differently. But his height without shoes is 6'8", almost 6'9", which I will say on tape. Now, granted, that was without shoes, but on tape he looks like 6'10", 6'11". I know shoes
Yeah.
obviously help, but he looks way taller than that. And then his weight is 197, at least at the combine, which not too bad. It's kind of light for his size, but it's still not too bad. We've seen players kind of come in with that weight, either gain weight or not gain weight, but still be productive in the NBA, which I want to bring up. Brandon Ingram is, I had to go back and look. And Brandon Ingram's kind of like the closest when it comes to just that height and weight coming in. Most people don't, Brandon Ingram was seen as like a 1-of-1 at the time. So, in his wingspan's like 6'10. So it's not maybe as high as you would want it to be, but it is. I mean, it's not bad either. It's not negative. Which we've seen. What I really like about his game is I think he is just a very skillful, like guys his size that can handle the ball do not grow on trees. That's one of those things where you can look at the shooting, which I'll touch on later. But you can look at the shooting. You can look at his ability to create off the dribble, which it's not really there. But it's just when you look at his size, the way he's able to handle the ball, the way he's able to get to the rim, which when you think about how small he is or how skinny he is, how aggressive he plays when he is attacking the rim. I know earlier you talked about the Euro with Ron Holland. Matas uses it a lot. But it works every time, at least from what I've seen. It just seems like it's his go-to move. There will be more. Of course, there will be more film on him once he gets to the NBA, so we'll see how teams adjust. But as of in the G League, it worked. Why stop it if it's working? And overall, he's just a smooth player. That's just the one word that comes to mind with him. With this draft class, you're going to have a lot of people that have a lot of downside, and he's not exempt from that. But it's just he's one of those guys where if he puts it together, he might be top 2, top 3, but he's got to put it together. And it is a little far from that, of course, but you see all the things from him. We saw guys like him in the playoffs, like Franz Wagner, who kind of, I hope at least he can shoot better than Franz, because that was kind of the thing that hurt Orlando in that series was Franz's inability to shoot. I think Modest is projected, to me at least, to be a little better shooter than that. Even though I do think they play Franz more at like the 2. That's not where I see Montes. I see him more of a 3-4. But yeah, what are your thoughts on just like him overall as a prospect, and then we can kind of break down his game a little further.
For sure. Yeah. I'd like to. I know he shot it better in pre-G League Ignite, and that's hopefully a positive indicator going forward, because like he is going to need to shoot it better, right? I mean, I think he was around 26% from deep. And if he's going to play the 3 or the 4, it's something he's going to have to do. Overall, though, I think given some time to develop, I like kind of like the archetype for him. I think he's a guy that I don't think he's projecting as like a first or a second option, but I think he could be like a good third option, create some of the mid range, score one-on-one, can handle or play both sides of pick and roll, work as an off-ball connector. And then defensively, he blocked a lot of shots with Ignite this year. I thought his positioning was really good defensively. So just like be a solid defender, guard a couple positions, give you some weak side rim protection, be a good team defender. You mentioned some of the burst or you talked sort of about his ability to finish at the rim and his drives. Like I think the burst and flexibility for his size, they're both pretty good, and the handle's getting better. He has some moments of deceleration. The footwork on drives is pretty good. The finishing package isn't quite there to like capitalize routinely, but like in terms of like the fundamentals, there's like stuff to like here. And if he could get stronger, then he really has the chance. It feels like he gets like knocked off playing, is playing a lot. And that's really when like the finishing can sort of like can struggle a little bit. But I like what he has there, and just like the one-on-one shot making, like the baseline fadeaway kind of became a shot of his this year.
That's like his shot. That's his signature already.
Yeah. He pretty routinely can take and make tough shots off the dribble. Good touch, out to the mid range. Percentages maybe aren't quite there yet. So the shot is something you'll have to buy into, but I think there are reasons to sort of like the Buzelis, like the kind of like mid-range shot creation game that he has, the high release, that size, and with the passing off of it, you could see a guy that could be like a really helpful offensive player and like sort of do a lot of stuff for you in transition in the half court with his ability to make quick decisions and score from a couple different spots on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I basically what my everything, all the notes I had about him offensively, you basically said, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. No, because he is to me, I think he is a gifted scorer. At least he has the potential to be a very gifted scorer. Also, I really like that you mentioned that he's not going to be your first or second option. He's just
Mhm.
not. But I think the upside here is that the Hornets don't need a first or second option. They
Yeah.
need that tertiary kind of fourth guy to kind of step up. And what I like about his game is really while he does need the ball to really be the most effective, he has the ability to play off ball and hit corner shots. We saw he is able to do the one-on-one scoring, as you mentioned, and that fadeaway has been huge for him. In fact, like that's like looking at his shot chart, that was like one of his most shots at that little range instead of going into the paint. So I would like to see, like you said, the rim finishing. I would like to see him just add a little more because usually it's either a dunk or a layup. It's nothing really special. It's not like he has hang time or doing anything spectacular. It's pretty, one dimensional. But like I said earlier, it works. So if I'm him, why, especially in that the whole experiment that is G League Ignite, if it's working, why change it? Because one bad change and then your draft stock can plummet.
Yep.
So I really don't blame him for that, but I would like to see it. I do need to see it. It's not something that I'm willing to just take on and ignore. He does need to add some versatility to it. But overall, I think he's a very, very solid offensive prospect. Like I said,
Mhm.
the word smooth just comes to mind because that's what I see when I watch him on tape. And I do like his ability to, because with being G League Ignite, he's had different kinds of setups, like different players that he's had to play with. And I think I wouldn't say flourished, but as well as you can do with that kind of what they had going on there.
Yeah.
I think he learned to kind of play with his teammates quickly. And so you saw kind of his style change to according to who he's playing with. And of course, there was times where he obviously was the best player on the court. So then you would see him at least attempt to take over. And I think that's where that lack of being a first, because with Ron Holland, he did take over. There was plenty of times where you saw him take over. Buzelis doesn't really have that, at least not yet.
Mhm.
But as far as archetype goes, it's the new thing in the league. To have someone that length that can dribble, that can be smooth, that can score. Like I said, he's able to get to the rim in different ways, and we're seeing guys. He's not Chet, but we're seeing guys like Chet kind of be able to kind of carve that lane, as if we want to refer to another young player. So yeah, I really like his game. I really like his
Yeah.
offensive game. Anything
Yep.
else you need to say about him offensively, and then we'll switch over to defense.
Yeah, we'll just say last thing, like again, he's going to take time to develop offensively. He needs to get stronger. He kind of has the ability to get like stopped and get stacked up on drives, kind of similar to like when Brandon Miller will get himself into bad spots trying to drive in the half court. I feel like Buzelis has like sort of like similar tendencies. But what I would say, despite the fact that I think this guy needs some seasoning, like um I think if he were to put him into an NBA court right now, his decision making, he would immediately come in and start just setting flare screens, cutting, just doing like small,
Mhm.
trying to hit the offensive glass to like scavenge for points. Like he kind of knows how to play without the ball and sort of like play in when he has to be in sort of just like a lower usage like wing role too, when he has to
Mhm.
like adapt to that. So there's some like malleability to his game. I know that stuff like that's like maybe not like exciting for a when you're talking about the sixth pick, but I think there's somewhat of a foundation there, and there's like pathways for more greater upside as well.
For sure. And it's ultimately gonna, I think the pick, no matter who we talk about, I think the pick's ultimately gonna come down to what does Charles Lee kind of see for this team? What are they looking for? Because I
Mhm.
think you're not gonna find someone to check all the boxes. So it's gonna be what do you feel like the team needs the most? And that's gonna kind of the pick's gonna fall that way. So to your point, it may not be the best thing, but if they feel like that's what's going to help this team get to the next level, then they're more likely going to get him
Mhm.
if he falls that far. Because a lot of people are getting higher and higher on him, and I think Detroit is the only team I'm worried about as they pick right before us. So for defense, The best way I can sum up his defense is, as you mentioned, he blocks a lot of shots. He had 2 blocks per game last year, and only like 2.6 fouls per game. So I did like that. As much as he does contest shots, it's not like he's fouling out every game. He's not Jaren Jackson Jr. Cat, even though Cat just does dumb fouls, but he's not one of those bigs who are just going to catch themselves in a lot of foul trouble early on. At least G League night, so you have to throw in that caveat. But I did like his weak side rim protection, as you mentioned, and I really, like I said, to sum it up, I really feel like if used correctly, he could do what they were trying to get PJ do for years. Except I think he has a little more offensive game, as we mentioned, his ability to handle. But PJ at times I think just lacked the size to really be an off ball, even though sometimes he did it well, and I think he's doing it better in Dallas. He just lacked really the size of what it took to really do that, and then also his role changed every year. That I just don't think he was really able to get acclimated. But I think Buzelis, if they use him correctly, I think him being that weak side defender at the rim is going to be huge, because he is really good at like spotting the ball as soon as someone puts it up to try to go to the rim. It's very rare that he's not a shot blocker where I'm just swinging at everything that comes at the rim.
Yeah.
I think he's very
Yeah.
calculated with his shot block attempts, and I really
Yep.
like that for him.
Yep.
Guarding on the perimeter, he has the size. I'm not going to say he has the quickness quite yet, but I mean, you're a coach. Charles Lee's going to figure it out on who to put him on, who not to put him on. I wouldn't put him on the quickest guy, but I also wouldn't be afraid to put him on someone who may be a little bit bigger, but maybe quick for their size. I really wouldn't have any trouble with that. The only thing is I would need him to add weight if that is how we're going to be able, if that's how we're going to use him in point of attack. But other than that, I do think he can kind of hold down the paint a little bit. I know sometimes we try to run Grant Williams there. I think with Buzelis, I don't think that should change. I think Grant Williams has done a pretty good job considering his size. I don't think we should just all of a sudden throw Buzelis down there, because one thing we've all mentioned previously is that Grant Williams is very strong. Buzelis doesn't have that yet, but he is someone who, like I said, he's very calculated with shot block attempts. So in certain lineups, I could see it working, but I really wouldn't anchor on that as they've done with PJ in the past. What else do you have to say about his defense?
Yeah, we'll just say like again, you sort of touched on the rim protection stuff during the 29 just regular season G League games this season. 54 blocks. It was good for 3.2 blocks per 100 possessions. It's pretty good. His positioning is good. His length is good. Aggression, good. Like all of that. Fitting that as like if he's hypothetically in Charlotte and you're getting like a, good outcome version for him, his ability to be like secondary rim protection around Mark Williams is like, yeah, it sounds pretty good. Not to keep harping on the same thing, but he is going to have to get stronger. Like guys,
that's going to be the biggest thing for him. If he doesn't, it's not going to work.
Yeah, guys can just attack as a body and get into him one-on-one when they're driving. Like you mentioned, Grant Williams. If he was trying to guard Grant Williams in space right now, Grant Williams would just immediately would just go right into his chest and put him into the 13th row and then hit an uncontested layup. So he's gonna have to get stronger there, both in terms of like guarding on the perimeter, screen navigation, or just like, if he's having to hang with, some of the larger hybrid forwards in the NBA, then yeah, strength is going to be a big next step for him. But overall, like there's some upside on that side of the floor, and you package it with the offense, and there's a pretty interesting, you can see a guy that can be a starter in the NBA and play in the playoffs. Like I don't think I see like a superstar here, but I think there's a pathway to finding a guy that's like very playable in a lot of like important situations. It would be a nice guy to add to the young core. If he ends up, he would not be my first selection, but I would be like very comfortable if Charlotte went this direction at 6.
Yeah, I'm still teetering between probably who we're about to talk about next and him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like his game, and I see the upside with him.
Yeah.
It's just if he weighed a little more now, I think I feel a little more confident. So his lack of strength just worries me, and then also kind of where we are as a team. I still have some questions about that, so it really becomes less about him and more about where we are. And who we're going to have around him. So that to me has a big impact on whether he's the guy or not.
Yep.